Hello, my friend. My name is Byron, and I'm from the BJJ Brick Podcast. I want to thank you for checking out the podcast on the YouTube channel here. It's a weekly show dedicated to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and having fun on the mats. Enjoy the show.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Brick Podcast. This is episode 237, and we have Livia Gluchowska as our guest, and I'm looking forward to it. Byron did the interview, and a lot of great stuff there. Speaking of Byron, I got Byron on the line with me. I got Gary on the line with me. And they just got back from the DMV. Well, yesterday afternoon they got done at the DMV, and they got vanity license plates. And Byron, yours says GRPLMAN, which I assume is short for Grapple Man. And Gary, yours is JITZKID, the Jits Kid. Is that short for the Jiu-Jitsu Kid?
That's short for the Jiu-Jitsu Kid. You're right.
So tell me about these plates and what's the bigger story here?
Well, the one thing that's happened to me a few times is, I don't look very intimidating. I'm not very intimidating. And I wear funny glasses and I got a receding hairline. And what was happening was, I'd get a lot of road rage incidents where people would want to fight me. And I figured a good way to stop this, I've tried looking straight ahead. I've tried, everything to, not mess with anybody and have anybody mad at me. And it never worked. Somebody would always get upset, pull in front of me and get out and try to fight me. So I figured, putting in Jits Kid. And I also have a lot of tap-out stickers on my car. I mean, basically, I don't have paint anymore. It's all just Jiu-Jitsu stickers on there, BJJ Brick stickers. You can actually get one if you join the Patreon group. But, those are things that I've been doing to stop road rage incidents, that are taking place with me. And it's done well. I mean, I haven't been beat up in 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm pretty happy, and I think the vanity plate will go a long way.
Nice. How about you, Byron?
Yeah, mine, because I drive a pink Cadillac, of course. The Grapple Man is really just so that they know that it's a dude driving this thing. Less the grappling, but that's really what I'm working at there, because I get a lot of guys will pull up next to me and start honking and look, and then they're disappointed that it's an ugly dude. And I figured with a license plate like Grapple Man, they wouldn't even, or they would be less likely to try that sort of maneuver on me.
The only thing that really, sucked, I guess, for Byron, is they spelled it wrong. It's Crapple Man.
Well, I should have showered before I got in there that morning.
Either way, they still know he's a man, and that's what he was going for. So he's okay with it.
Yep. So yeah, he's happy. He is definitely happy.
And this kind of takes us to our off the mat lesson. I was at the house the other day, and the doorbell rings. And there's a man at the door. Not the smoothest of transitions from one thing to the other, but we'll go with that. It's a man, and my Grapple Man thing. So
was he driving a pink Cadillac?
No, he was walking.
Okay.
It was a door-to-door salesman. And I, open the door, and I say, hey. And he goes, hi, I'm Matt. And he literally holds up his business card between our faces. And he hands it to me like that. And it's got a large, kind of a cartoon picture, kind of like we have for the logo, of him, and he's making a funny smile, and his head's tilted sideways. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And then I take the card, and I move it down, and he's making the same face. And it immediately, broke me. I started laughing, that was funny. And it was like a built-in joke, like a built-in surprise, because I didn't expect that to happen. And I don't remember... He was selling painting houses, and I don't know. He was just going door to door, seeing if anybody needed their houses painted. So anyway, the whole thing with that is he had a unique way of kind of breaking that ice, and it wasn't for me, and that's fine. But I did talk to him, and I did appreciate his business card, and I've told this to a couple people, and it was funny. but I take this to jiu-jitsu, and having a unique way to break the ice. And you see people who come in and they watch a class. And I recommend this when people, if you're thinking about training, you're a little nervous, you don't know what it's going to be like, just go in and watch a class. Literally, nothing bad other than you might get bored, or it's kind of a humid room for a while. I don't know, nothing. You're going to sit and watch people do an activity. That's pretty safe. That's you may be a little out of comfort zone, but you're going to be fine. But as somebody who wants to do something unique to that person that they never experienced, let's just say, we're working on guillotine chokes or whatever, standing guillotine chokes. That's an easy example. Well, it wouldn't hurt, especially as an instructor. A lot of times during the class, I'm kind of walking around and helping people with little details. Sometimes I pair up with somebody and I train with that person. Depends on if it's even or odd or what's going on that day. But if I approach this person who's just sitting there watching their first class, not participating, I say, hey, you want to try this on me real quick? And they can say yes or no, and it's not a big deal. But if they say yes, I've suddenly broken that little bit of ice that there was there, and now they're trying jiu-jitsu. I think that this could be a real powerful tool to get people to... They've made the commitment to come in and look, but when they leave, they really haven't felt like they've done anything. And at least when they leave that sort of experience, they thought, well, I tried this, and it seemed like it wasn't too bad. And so I don't know, I always like the idea of not like dragging someone on the mat, but just offering them a little bit of a physical sample of what we're doing, as long as it's not like too overboard. And you don't want to show, a worm guard thing because they don't have a lapel and it's complicated anyway. But if something's pretty simple, you can offer, hey, do you want to feel this, or you want to try it on me? You're more than welcome to. And half the time they say yes, half the time they say, oh, no, I'm just watching. And either one, it's not a big deal. But for them, if they try it, it might be a big deal. It might be kind of what it takes to get them over the edge. Much like a funny business card.
I like that, Byron. I was thinking this morning as we were rolling with a brand new person, I heard you invite him to your class, to your school to train. You're always doing that. But what I like about what you were just saying about, approach the guy watching, see if they want to get out on the mat and try the move. But let's say they don't want to get on the mat. Let's just say they're still a little intimidated. Even if they leave that day, somebody came up and tried to be their friend and became their friend. And I think that's a big thing too, that's going to have a profound effect on that person and make it easier for them to come back the next time. They may come in and just talk with the owner real quick, watch a class, and just walk out before anybody talks to them. But you, not as the owner, as one of the black belts at the school, you actually would come up to that person and say, hey, you want to try something? And even if they say no, I know your demeanor. I know you're probably going to have some couple other words with that person and make them feel welcome. And, that's the way to grow jiu-jitsu and grow your school.
Gary, tell them about that other thing you do where if they don't seem to want to get on the mat, but you go up and you make friends and talk to them for a while. And then you say, let me get a selfie with you if you don't mind. You get your selfie stick out, stretch that thing out. So you got to stand next to them, sort of sidle up behind them a little bit, and slap a rear naked choke on. And then, like Byron said, next thing they know, they are doing jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And then you just tag them in the photo on Facebook, and everybody thinks they train jiu-jitsu, so they're going to have to. So works good. And it's also the one that, like I know you do a lot of times, Joe. You go to shake their hand, and when they put their hand out to shake them, you arm drag them onto the mat. That's another good way, too. That's right. Yep. I like that one, Joe.
Good.
He does the arm drag. You guys are kind of in a little bit of an arms race for who can make up something better about somebody else. I'm out of it. I'm like the neutral one here. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. But, me and Joe are always battling. And what that brings me to is the quote of the week from Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, which he said, you may have to fight a battle more than once to win it. What do you guys think about that quote from Miss Thatcher?
So many times you think, this is it, this is my big one, and you go and you try to do something, whether it's apply for a job or a tournament. It feels like the next tournament is the biggest tournament ever. But it may not go well. Maybe your job interview kind of flopped. Maybe the test didn't go so well. But you're still in the fight. You just go to battle again, and you pick yourself up and learn from anything you can as far as mistakes or what you could do better, and you go again. And I think that jiu-jitsu teaches this to us because there are people who seem like they're invincible when you first start. And as time goes on, that invincible, whether it be a blue belt or another white belt, that just like you could do nothing to. And after a while, you start to hang with them a little better. And you're just fighting the battle more and more. And you're adjusting and learning. And your growth curve sometimes will catch up to somebody. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes somebody will be always a little ahead of you. And that's fine too. But just the act of the battle changes the person.
You know, Byron, I think about it, we talk about fight the battle more than once to win it. I think about just starting jiu-jitsu. I'd been wanting to train jiu-jitsu for a long time. I saw some ads in the paper. It made me want to go train. I'd watched, UFC 1, UFC 2, and thought Royce Gracie was the greatest, which I still think he's incredible. And, he's the guy who got me started. But I call the school up, and they tell me what time to show up and everything. And the very first day, I drove out there, and I drove around the block and drove home. I was intimidated to go in. Just like you were talking about a minute ago about the guy watching the class. I wasn't watching. I was going to participate. It might have been easier for me to watch, but to be honest, I was scared. I came home and I didn't do it. I chickened out, I guess you could call it. And then I kept telling myself, okay, I'll go next week, or next class. I think it was 2 days later. And, that day I showed up and, I pulled up in the parking lot and I got out and I went in. And for me, that was winning the battle. I didn't win the first time. And, it took me a little bit of nudging to get in there, but I won it the second time. And, here I am 15 years later, and I'm glad that I didn't just quit after losing that first battle. I'm glad I kept fighting because I have found a lifelong art, met lifelong friends, learned lifelong skills, become healthier, become more flexible and stronger because I kept up with this. So I'm glad I did it again.
Cool story, Gary. You can take this quote one step further and say, not only do you have to fight a battle more than once to win it, but sometimes you have to win the same battle a few times. You think about learning to survive on the bottom and developing some skills and some defense there. And, you kind of learn it to the degree that the pressure is being given to you. Guys aren't trying to kill you at most schools when you're new. And you can feel like you develop a system there and some tools. And then you get a little further in your journey and the guys say, we're taking it easy on this guy. It's time to turn it up a little bit. And you feel like you're back to square one. And that can happen over and over in jiu-jitsu, really, and you just can't let it knock you down. You got to keep going. Yep,
that's a good point, Joe. And I see that happen all the time. It happens to me. It happens to probably all of us. One other thing I'd like to say about this, I have a coworker and a training partner that I work with, and he just got on the fire department, and we were talking about it today. He had tried 4 different times to get on the fire department. And each time, he didn't make it. And, he was upset. Basically, I guess we could call that losing a battle. And he kept going and going. And when we were talking today, he told me he almost gave up because he was, disappointed he didn't make it. But he said he's glad that he didn't get it the first time now that he's got it, because it means so much more to him because he worked so hard to get it. He never gave up. He kept pushing. And, those are great traits to have, not just on the mat, but in life. And, I'm happy he fought for it, never quit. And now he's got the job that he always wanted.
Yeah, so am I. I'm happy for him. And that's awesome.
And Byron played a hand in helping him. Byron talked to him and, mentored him and, gave him some advice to get in. So, I mean, if he never started jiu-jitsu, he would have never had that, person helping him out too. And I'm not saying you're the only one who got him in, but, it was just another benefit of jiu-jitsu. We talk about jiu-jitsu all the time, the different types of people you meet, people from all circles of life that you wouldn't have known before. And in all reality, Byron, that's one of how you probably became a firefighter.
Yeah.
You met a ton of firefighters who helped you and who mentored you and who got you on the force or on the department, and you did the same thing and paid it back. And so not only with jiu-jitsu do we learn a life skills, we get healthy, we learn self-defense, we have fun, we work our brain. We meet a lot of people who can help us get farther in life because, we all work together. So Jiu-jitsu is awesome, as you probably can tell by the way I've been talking about it.
And I made the offer a couple times before. If you're listening to the show, and thank you for listening, and you are interested in a career in the fire service, send me an email, bjjbrick@gmail.com. I'll be happy to chat with you and tell you how it's impacted me, what I like about it, and really what to expect, and really a few little tips about what to pursue and how to go about doing that if that's something that you wanted to do. I'm always thrilled and really honored that a few people have contacted me, and very happy to give any sort of help I can, because it is a job that I love, and if it's right for you, it could be a great option. So bjjbrick@gmail.com, put something about fire questions, or I don't know what. Put something in the headline that'll catch my attention, and I'll definitely get a hold of you and we'll chat. That all wrapped up. This interview was on fire. Livia, I was really impressed. She was like a gymnast for about 12 years, and then she made a transition to jiu-jitsu, but we got into a really interesting conversation about like picking up skills and how that relates to picking up skills on the mat versus picking up skills, I guess it's also on the mat, in gymnastics versus jiu-jitsu. And some things are similar, some things are not, but I thought that was really kind of a cool part of the conversation. Checked it out, but a lot coming our way from Livia Gluchowska.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He went to prison for transporting a huge amount of jiu-jitsu across the border, hidden in his gi. His grandkids could roll before they could crawl. He has never swatted a mosquito that was biting him. It's not that he doesn't want to. It's just too similar to tapping, and that's not in his nature.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Livia Gluchowska to the BJJ Brick podcast. Livia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're excited to have you here. We're kind of going through a lot of the different members of your gym and getting them on the show. And here we are. And I'm happy to get you now. I should have gotten you a while ago, but if somebody's unfamiliar with you and maybe your competition history, could you just kind of bring us up to speed and who you are and what you're up to?
Sure. So my name is Livia Gluchowska. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I originally came from Poland, so I came to Australia when I was about 12, and I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 25. So I received my black belt last year, coming up to a year actually, and I've been quite successful at the lower belt levels. So I've managed to win 3 weight world titles at blue and purple belt, gi and no gi, and also at brown belt. I won worlds, and then I received my black belt last year and came second at the no gi worlds and second at European titles. So definitely it is a different world out there at black belt. But on top of that, so I coach at Absolute MMA in Melbourne. I coach the women's team, mixed classes as well, and I head the kids program at my gym. And I work full-time as a physiotherapist on top of my training and competing. So life's busy for me at the moment, which is great.
You do sound very busy. It's I don't know if it's unusual or not, but it seems a bit interesting that even as a blue belt, purple belt, you were traveling very far to compete. What was that like, and what made you choose that route?
I guess I didn't choose it. It chooses us because we're in Australia. So if you do want to go to world titles or, any major competition, you have no choice. So it's extremely expensive for us. It's very time consuming. As a blue belt and probably purple belt, I used to probably just do two big competitions a year. So it might have been the gi and the no gi world championships. In the last few years, I've been a bit luckier that I could, go to a lot more competitions, not all of them, but it is really tiring. So often I'll, do an LA trip for 3 days from Australia, literally land at home at 6 a.m. and be at work at 9 a.m. So I wouldn't recommend it, but I think it's necessary, you know, to get even a fight at black belt. Asian Open, I would probably only have one match. So you have to travel far and spend a lot of money doing it, but it has been an amazing journey so far.
Before jiu-jitsu, you said you started around 25. Did you do many other sports?
Yes, so I'm jack of all trades, master of none. Seriously, I was a gymnast for 12 years. So I started in Poland, and I think I'm going to say retired at about 18. So I was a gymnast for 12 years and sort of training like 32 hours a week by the time we were 12 or something crazy. So I guess I'm no stranger to competition, and I think what gymnastics has taught me is how to train extremely hard, probably a little bit too hard, and how to be, you know, self-disciplined, have just good body awareness and learning movements and proprioception and where your body's in space. But the sport is unfortunately riddled with, probably like any other sport, you know, I guess eating disorders, mental disorders, and it's a tough place to be when you're growing up as a young female. So when I stopped at about 19, I wasn't done with sport, but definitely done with gymnastics. And I think it was my physiotherapist that said I would be good at weightlifting or sprint cycling. And I just went, wow, what a choice. So I went to a velodrome and became a sprint cyclist. So I did that for about 6 years and had some success, trained really hard. At the time, Australia was top of the world in track cycling. So my first race was against, you know, an Olympic champion. But yeah, probably after about 6 years of, I guess, giving up, I was working full time, but not going to university to pursue my studies. And probably at about 24, 25, I started to think about, you know, how am I going to pay my bills? I don't want to be on minimum wage for the rest of my life. And I decided that wasn't through sport. So I started my university degree and promised myself I would never compete again because I get really obsessive and I spend all my time doing the sport. And around that time I met Lachlan. Actually, we worked together as physios. And I think I went to Brazil to party with my sister, and then I ended up starting jiu-jitsu and competed 3 months later and never looked back. So, yeah, so much for my promises.
Do you find much, clearly you were an athlete coming into jiu-jitsu, but do you find much kind of lessons learned from gymnastics or your sprint cycling that help you either train or maybe just help you physically on the mats?
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. I think, I'm going to say yes because obviously having been an athlete for so many years versus someone who hasn't prepares you for a lot. At the same time, you're going through from an individual sport to perhaps a team sport to a combat sport. So the training is very different. The psychology is very different of competing. But at the same time, you know, I'm no stranger to adrenaline. I'm no stranger to knowing how to control my nerves in competition. I'm no stranger to having my body hurt and ache all the time and pushing through that. You know, I know how to, whether, again, that's a good or a bad thing, like in sprint cycling where the lactic acid buildup is so high during your efforts, you end up, you know, vomiting every session. So I've pushed my body to pretty extreme levels and I know what that feels like. And I think that certainly has helped. And I think another thing with gymnastics, you know, you don't learn a skill overnight. You master a skill over 12 years. And I think that's something very similar to jiu-jitsu. But you're adding another factor in it, and that's another person who's trying to stop you doing the thing that you want to do to them. So it makes it a lot harder. It's not just controlling yourself, but it's also, you know, trying to beat an opponent who's trying to control you. So yes and no, it's a completely different sport. But also, you know, I think I've learned how to work with teammates, with coaches. I would say I'm a pretty coachable athlete. I've become a lot more self-reliant since I've started jiu-jitsu. But definitely. I think any sport you do as a kid especially gives you that discipline, gives you, you learn how to lose and how to win as well, because both are really important. And I think probably what held me back at the very start, or maybe made me improve as well, was that I was used to hanging at the top of my sport, with the elite, and you start as a white belt, and it's very frustrating to be pretty bad again at something. But so the frustration on the mats, as a white belt were real, whereas now I just know it's part of the process. But yeah, definitely, I think any sport you can do as a younger kid through early adulthood will help you in life for sure, and in whatever other sport you choose to do.
Looking at gymnastics and sprint cycling, are those things people can do as they get older, or is that kind of a fine timeline that people do these and then they have to do something else?
I think with gymnastics, there's definitely a timeline, but I mean, it all depends at what level you want to do it. I think gymnastics gets very difficult to do at the elite level as an adult, simply because of time demands and body changes, injuries. Like, not many adults can commit 35 hours a week to training. Our bodies change. I think for men, actually, they peak a lot later because the strength develops later, towards the 30s, whereas with women, you have to be quite small and petite. And once you go through puberty, of course, we have more fat, we have, a different shape, and becomes a little bit harder to do the skills. And of course, in gymnastics, it's an amateur sport. There's no financial rewards, so that bothers most people past, I guess, 20. With cycling, you can definitely race forever. Again, at the elite level, it will get difficult, but there's club races, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. You can do local races on the velodrome, on the road. Pretty much there's different grades as well. So like jiu-jitsu has belts, cycling will have different grades, and you get graded regarding, depending on your ability or age or whatever it might be. And, there's people in the 80s racing bikes. So it is something you can do always. It's just probably a little bit more dangerous because you are out on the road. Chances of falls are quite high. But I guess every sport has its risks. So you just have to weigh it up and see what's important to you, I guess.
We got to get back to jiu-jitsu, but I just keep having more and more questions about this. Yeah. I don't really know what sprint cycling is. How short are the distances? And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's the thing on the velodrome, which is the really steep, I guess, round oval thing that you see people race. And the sprint is you do a qualifier, so you do a 200-meter dash, and then you can seed it. So the fastest person, say top 8, will go against the 8th person, and you do the cat and mouse race. So you've got 3 laps, and whoever gets over the line first. So a lot of it is tactics and going at the right time. You sprint for about 250 meters, and the rest is trying to get the position you like. So you can go up a track and get a rundown. Some people are better, when they're chasing someone from behind. Some people are better when they're in front. So it's all about getting the positioning and the timing right. And you play a lot of mental games. You stare at your opponents. You go at the right time. And then most sprint cyclists will also do, for women, it's a 500-meter time trial. And for men, it's a kilometer time trial. So it's pretty much up to 500 meters, any events like that fast switch fibers, very explosive, lots of power work, and power to weight ratio counts for it as well as the mental aspect.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really don't know much about the cycling world. My extent is I read The Secret Race. It was a book by Tyler Hamilton and Daniel Coyle, and it talked about Lance Armstrong and different drug uses and that sort of thing. But that's a whole different deal. I mean, it has a bike. It's like, karate has a gi, but it's totally different as far as what's actually happening.
Doping, which is, it's pretty, well, I don't know if, I actually have no idea if cycling has more doping than other sports, but it's certainly been exposed more than other sports. Okay. So, I think the nature of the sport unfortunately calls for it and the amount of financial reward. But it's certainly been more investigated and exposed than other sports, and it would be nice if other sports also have, taken the lead and done the same.
Yeah, that would be nice. And just,
the ideal.
Yeah, anybody interested in doping or what's happening with technology and the arms race, I guess, with drugs and officials, that was a really interesting read. But so you mentioned that, like, gymnastics obviously is you're acquiring skills, you're mastering skills, same as jiu-jitsu. When you're maybe think back to being a blue belt or a white belt, did any of those things, not necessarily the skills, but the way you learned them or the way you thought about those skills and how you were going to pick them up, did any of that translate?
They do, and I'm not quite sure if it's actually to my advantage. So I think gymnastics requires you to be pretty much perfect, and that's what we strive for. So my skill learning was a little bit different. Everything had a step and everything had to be executed perfectly. So I guess what it helped me with is having a system and having a step and having a very good feel of where my body should be and how things should feel. So even as a white belt, I was quite aware of this doesn't feel right, but I don't know how to fix it. And to constant frustration of Lockie, where his skill learning was through, self-learning and exploration. If he didn't have an answer for something, he will go and look through hours and hours of footage of what the top players did in competition and found the answer of, he's having a problem with this underhook. Also, how does the other opponent deal with it? So it helped me knowing that I should fix something, but I've really tried really hard over the years to try to change my style of learning to not be perfect, because you're fighting somebody else who you'll never have the same reaction twice. And you have to trust your body a little bit more. And, I don't want to get into the drilling versus, or maybe we should, drilling versus concepts debate, but both are really important. I use my drilling to learn the skill, and then the concept of, right, what's the overall aim of my move? And it might be to get an underhook. How I get there is slightly less important. Whether it's out by 3 centimeters or not, it doesn't matter. Whereas I think in my younger years in jiu-jitsu, I used to get really frustrated that it wasn't perfect. And now I know it can't really be, because you're reacting to someone else trying to fight you. I have definitely taken stuff, but I've had to readjust over the years a lot to make myself better.
Help me understand your drilling versus concepts. You're drilling to make sure the moves you do are the best you could do them, understanding that they're not going to be 100% perfect. The concepts, that's more trying to make sure you're doing the right things.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't explain that right. So I think what I'm trying to say is, drilling for 5 hours, same move, doing it sloppily and doing some sort of, leg drag for 5 hours. I just don't think it's making you better at that move. You've got the motor pattern. It's already in your head. You know the move. And doing it with no resistance, with the same intent with the same intensity, I don't think it makes you better at the move. It's like when you're driving a car, I've been driving for 15 years, but I've never been a race car driver. So I'm not better at racing cars. I'm just better at driving like an average person on the road. And it's the same with jiu-jitsu. I think if you want to, once you know what movement you're doing, you need to add resistance and you need to add reaction. It might be one reaction at a time, or it might be, you concentrate over one grip at a time and you add other variables. But what I'm trying to say is, so the concept is, you have to really do it in live sparring and think about what you're doing rather than just trying to repeat the same thing over and over without anyone trying to stop the motion, because that's not realistic.
Yeah, Livia, I love your example of driving a car. a lot of us have many, many years of driving a car.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not much different of a driver than I was last year. I'm not doing anything different. Maybe the first time I had to drive on ice, I suddenly learned here's how the car handles on that. Or it's snowy, or maybe if you're used to driving in the daytime and now it's nighttime. Those little things, but those are different things. It's kind of like rolling. If you just do the same drill for hours and hours, day after day, it's kind of like driving to work every day. You can check out mentally, and you don't really grow.
Exactly. It's like walking, you learn it as a toddler, and then you just know how to walk, and you don't get much better at it over the next, between the age of 6 and 80, you're pretty much the same at it.
I will always slam my pinky toe into the bedpost. Never getting any better at that.
You're getting worse.
But those are good examples to help, I guess, people realize that without the resistance, you really don't grow much.
Yeah, and look, I think I have to remember everyone learns differently. Everyone's different. You look at some of the world champions, you look at the Miaos, you look at Rikako Yuasa, and they drill for, 5 hours a day, and I'm not exaggerating. And they're world champions, so I might be completely wrong, but from coming from a scientific motor learning perspective and also from my own sanity, there are better ways, I think, but that's not proven because there's people who are way better than me that train very differently to me. So who knows?
But I like to look at places like your gym there that are hotbeds of talent that really. Why is it there? What are they doing differently? Clearly, like Australia is not known for having the top 100 grapplers all living there. So clearly, you guys are doing something different. And sure, you could take 3,000 people and make them train a lot, and there are going to be some really good grapplers out there. But you have a relatively small amount of people, and they're doing great things and really accomplishing a lot. And it's important to look at that and just look at the different numbers you're working with.
That is true. Yeah, look, and I think it does help that Lockie and I come from a scientific background. Maybe also it does make a difference when you start jiu-jitsu in life. And it's same with Craig, we've never had access and kit Dale to top level or black belt world champions to train with. And a lot of it, our earlier learning has been done on other white belts and through exploration. And we all started as adults. I started quite late, much later than the boys, but I think your learning is a little bit different as an adult, and it maybe makes you or helps you become a better teacher. So as a kid, I think you don't question things. You just go, oh yeah, I'll do a forward roll, I'll do a berimbolo because they told me to. Whereas I think as an adult, you have to be shown the steps and the pathways and maybe explain why you're doing a certain move. And we've been very conscious of that as coaches to help adults learn rather than just go, oh, you do this, this, and this, 1, 2, 3, go, clap your hands and make them drill it 10 times, So we put a lot of context behind every movement. Maybe that helps a little bit as well. And definitely having the variety as well, Locke's the head coach, but we have Craig, who's got a massive following. We've got Kit, who's got a completely different approach. I have, a very different approach. No, not very different, but I do have, my style is different. I'm a small female, so I'm going to teach slightly different things as well. And I think having exposure to all of that, and also we're very open with, cross-training, learning off YouTube, as long as it's obviously good sources, watching footage, learning from other people and sharing that information around. We're very open with that, and I think that helps as well.
Livia, I got a little bit ahead of myself here because we got into this cool discussion about training and stuff like that. Yeah. I still want to know a little bit more about you. Could you tell me a little bit about your style of jiu-jitsu that you play and maybe some of your favorite techniques?
Sure. So it's definitely evolved and changed over the years. I used to be totally obsessed with just the gi, and I don't think I've ever really submitted anyone till I was like a blue or a purple belt. So I think my first coach always banged it into me that I had to be, position over submission, and I was quite strong when I first started jiu-jitsu, just stopping cycling. I was squatting something like, I don't know what it is in pounds, but something like 250 pounds for, 120-pound female. So I was using my strength quite a bit, and he would always say, position, you're not allowed to do submissions per month. And I just never really learned them as a white belt. And it's really evolved. So now I absolutely love no-gi. I used to be afraid of heel hooks and leg locks, and we obviously do it a lot at Absolute now. And it's just something that I was fearful of because I didn't have the information and the knowledge, became something that's really fun. And it's a new skill that I've learned. I've applied my no-gi game to my gi. It makes me better at gi. It makes me way tighter. And conversely, gi makes me better at no-gi because it's a little bit more technical and there's more steps involved. I've addressed my wrestling in the last 2 years. I've been wrestling probably 3 times a week and trying to encourage all the girls at my club to do it as well, just because I need training partners that are closer to my size. Wrestling with men is extremely difficult and a little bit dangerous for me. I think for someone my size, I love playing guard and I like spider guard. I like single X and X sort of variations, but right now I'm working on my half guard and more of a pressure game. So I think my style is constantly evolving, and I think what I really enjoy about jiu-jitsu is the puzzle and trying to improve at the things I'm not good at. So my C game or my E game will become my A game, and that's, half guard for me, top and bottom. It's not something that light feather or rooster women generally do, but it doesn't mean I can't do it. And same, I absolutely love being on top and passing at the moment, and it kind of does depend on what injury I've had. I tore my ACL about a year and a half ago and I never had surgery. So for about 6 months, I changed my style from changing directions and going around the legs with Torianda to doing, over-under pressure passing, and I became good at that. At the moment, I've got a cracked rib, so I can't be too speedy with I've just started to roll. I can't use my speed too much because there's a lot more leg kicking going on from my opponents when I do that. So I have to use my pressure a little bit better again. So I think depending where I am in life with injuries and body-wise, and also I guess what Lockie's working on, because you are kind of a reflection of your coach as well. So we sort of go through similar phases, but I'm definitely a bit more open guard, a bit more flexible. I invert a lot more and I use my spider guard a lot more than Lockie would, just because of the body type and my style and the women I have to fight in competition as well. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of injuries there. What's the key to either minimizing those or making sure you don't get those up in, like, near a competition? I know a competition is coming. You're going to be training extra hard. You're going to be trying to prepare for that. But how do you train hard and also safe?
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult. I think you have to know that you're doing a combat sport and you're going to get injured at some stage in your life, and the times I've gotten injured when silly reactions, they weren't anything, no one's tried to hurt me. No one's tried to do anything on purpose. It is hard being very light like I am. I've got a little bit less protection on me. It takes ages to learn how to roll with a lighter opponent as well. The guys have to give me the technical roll without using the strength as much, and it changes their technique, it changes the roll. And if I get the better of them, it's very hard not to lift that intensity up. And so sometimes finding good training partners takes years and takes a long time. So I don't try to blame it ever on my training partners, but it is hard being a small female. I think stopping when you're really tired is important, and there's a fine line with that. I think you should push yourself really hard, especially closer to competition time. Instead of doing, for example, 2 sessions a day, 2 hours each, I'll do 4 8-minute rounds, and I do them at 100%, and I go home. It keeps me fresh. It keeps my reaction times a little bit faster. I can make much better decisions and smarter decisions in my rolls, whereas when I'm completely exhausted, I'm slower, and I find that that's more likely to get injured. Also, when your muscles are completely fatigued as well, you're more prone to injury. But I think it's hard to say that you'll ever be able to not get injured in a combat sport. I think it's maybe unrealistic. And I've found it difficult because I do overtrain, and I find it hard to stop training even when I am injured because I really enjoy training. So I'm not sure I'm always the best person to ask, but as a physiotherapist, I can give people great advice, just not myself.
So, can I talk about being a physiotherapist? Tell me what it's like to compete at an elite level and have a job that takes so much time as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's necessary. I mean, I'm an adult. You know, we have goals and dreams like everyone else. I would like to buy a house, and I want to have enough money to pay my bills, and that's important to me. I think being an athlete is a privilege and it's a luxury. And I think a lot of us are quite self-entitled. You know, in the end, we're doing this thing because we like it, and we've got the privilege to not have to work full day and be able to train and roll and do something that's, you know, it's very important, but it's not necessary to your survival, I guess. So what I think also happens when you work and when you have different life on top of training is that it takes the pressure off you a little bit, you know, and you remember why you do jiu-jitsu. So for me, whether I win or lose world championships, like my first worlds when I won, that's all I've ever wanted my entire life. And I went back to work, and sure, people are happy for me and I get pat on the back and go, that's great, but what about my foot? And it just puts things into perspective. So when you lose, the same thing happens, you know, and you go back and you work your sweep again because that's the process you have to do to win a competition. And I think sometimes when you don't have anything else in your life, jiu-jitsu or, you know, getting tapped in training becomes a really, really, really big deal. And then when you go and lose a competition, which happens to everybody, it becomes really discouraging. So, you know, I'm not saying that when you're an elite athlete and if you can make money out of jiu-jitsu alone, that's fantastic. But it does help me to keep me sane a little bit and have different friendship groups. But, I mean, on top of that, I enjoy physiotherapy. I get to problem solve every day. I meet new people and I help athletes get back on the mat. And I really like my job. I've resigned from my position in November and opened up a clinic at my own gym. So I pretty much live there now, and it allows me to see patients before training. Then I train. I might see a few more patients. Then I coach. I put my gear back on. I go back to seeing patients, and then I might train for another 2 hours. So it's busy, but I get to do everything I want in a day, and my days are varied. They're fun. I'm never sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, and I have the luxury of, you know, blocking myself out if I've got a competition or if I'm completely exhausted or whatever it might be. So I think having some kind of work is important. I think it keeps things in perspective. And sometimes, you know, like even with finding sponsors, sometimes it's just easier to pick up an extra shift in a week and pay my own flights, and instead of writing proposals and then owing something to someone, you know. So that's the way I look at it, but everyone's different, of course.
Yeah, obviously having a good job with a good income helps you compete when you're wanting to and able to.
Definitely. It helps you compete. You know, we've got a few younger kids coming through the program, and whenever I talk to them and go, what are your goals? What do you want to do in life? And they might be 18 and they want to quit education or quit school and pursue jiu-jitsu full time. And it's hard because I don't want to discourage anyone from doing that, because if you are fully committed, you can be successful, I think. But, you know, a lot of the answers are, I'm going to own a school one day, and I sort of go, where are you going to get the capital to invest that money? Where are you going to get the education on how to manage your staff and how to do your own accounting? And, you know, you actually need some sort of schooling to help you do those things later in life, unless you're gifted with, you know, parents who are well off or inheritance or whatever it might be. I think you actually need those skills, even if you want to involve jiu-jitsu in your life. So, yeah, I think we sort of try to have a really honest conversation with the younger kids trying to quit school that it's perhaps not the best thing to do. But that's from, Lockie's and mine perspective, who value that a lot in our lives. Whereas, if you look at, for example, Kit Dale, he doesn't have a conventional job and he never really thrived in that environment. And he's doing extremely well. So who am I to say one way is better than another? But that's worked for me so far, and I haven't been able to, make my money any other way. So, yeah, well, I have to work.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of people making huge amounts of money that they're able to just kind of ride on in this sport. It's growing, and there'll definitely be more. But it's kind of like you see the kids that are playing high school football, and they're, hey, I'm going to be in the NFL, or I'm going to the basketball people think they're going to go to the NBA, and it's pretty tough. And there's definitely the positions there that do very well, but the odds are tough to reach that. So why not have like a good backup plan, or just I don't know. I think it helps you grow as a person to just have an actual job.
Absolutely. And even knowing how to communicate with people, how to talk to adults, and how to resolve conflicts, how to work with people you might not like. All of those skills are really important, and whether jiu-jitsu helps with your job or the job helps with jiu-jitsu, I think it's you need that exposure, I think.
Yeah. Livia, you've got a real strong women's program there. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that and how I guess you started that and some of the success stories behind that.
Yeah, so look, like probably any other female training, I was often the only girl at my club training. There would always be one or two that's come and gone. And I really wanted to change that, mainly because I really wanted to have good training partners. And also because I know what jiu-jitsu has done to me as a person and how much I've changed and how much I enjoy my life. So having been an athlete all my life, I also know what sport can do to friendships, and the friendships you build with people are lifelong, and it gives you that sense of community and belonging. And I wanted other women to experience that. So admittedly, jiu-jitsu might be quite intimidating when you first walk in and want to start something. And when we first, we took over a different club when we started at Absolute MMA, and I was the only female then, I literally had to tell the guys to stop urinating in my bathroom. And they just couldn't get it. They used to leave the door open, and I was like, can you get out of the female bathroom? And they were like, oh, but there's 100 of us and there's one of me. And I'm like, but it's my bathroom. Like, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a change room. I don't have a bathroom. And, the man used to get undressed in the middle of, take the jocks off in the middle of the mats. And, I don't really care because I'm not offended by that personally, but someone coming from the street who might have been, not every story of women in jiu-jitsu is an abuse story, but there are some, and you have to be quite conscious of that. Some women have never been in a physical fight with someone. Some women have never used their bodies in a physical way, and they come into an environment where they can't even get changed in a change room because men are there. Is actually really, it's an extremely difficult situation that some women are put in. Some of them, I've gotten emails and messages where they really wanted to come to class, but the anxiety is so high that they've been in a car park for 20 minutes and then they went home. And that's the stuff you don't hear. And once, for example, the third time she might come in and build up enough courage, and there's that sort of environment, it really doesn't help. So we've really tried hard to change that. Once we've moved gyms to a bigger venue, we could build male and female change rooms, male and female showers. And even though there was less of us, people just started coming, We started women's only classes, which we armed and ahed about at the start. But it's been an amazing success, mainly because it encourages people to start. So I'm not all for separating genders and saying, oh, women are better, we're doing our own thing. We're not. We're all the same people. But it does mean we have smaller training partners that are not as strong. And it does mean that the women who are intimidated are less intimidated to start, and then to hear us talk about men being actually really wonderful training partners and really supportive of our female program. So I think it's had a really big role. I'm also very, very lucky that blue, purple, and brown belt women keep coming to those classes, and they're like beautiful mentors and really nice and intelligent women who help the newer ones when they come in. And so when the new ladies see that black, brown, and purple belts are on the mat all the time, especially during the women's classes, I think it helps with the retention. We try to be very inclusive, so whoever new joins in, we add them into the group. We make sure if we go out for beer after training, everyone's invited, and we try to include everyone. And I think most of all, we learned how to train really hard. So I don't know whether it was, when I first won Worlds or second time I won Worlds, my message was that if I can do it at whatever the age of 28, anyone else can do it. I'm not that special. I'm not an extremely fast learner. I'm not an 18-year-old protege from Brazil. So if I can do it, why can't we all do it? And the blue and the white belts I had at the time started following that, and they would see me train just as hard as the guys, if not more. And we just built that culture. So now the blue and purple belt ladies are pretty much, nearly kicking my butt, and I've got extremely hard rolls now. And probably in 2 years' time, they're going to overtake me, and that's the way it should be. But it's taken probably only just 3 years to change that. We have been probably lucky in that some people came from other clubs, and we've always had high-level roles and training partners. But I think at Absolute so we've got 6 world titles, not at black belt, but all the minor belts, and something like 19 world championship medals between 9 people, between 9 women. And that's, again, pretty rare to come from Australia, from one little place. But I think when you kind of go, all right, it's the standard, it's not an anomaly, and it becomes a standard, it's a little bit easier to achieve. And it gets to the point where, someone might get knocked out in a quarterfinal at Worlds or not medal, and they get really upset. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that that's not the norm. Medaling at world titles is not something that anyone can do, and we have to maybe not get upset at that. But it lifts the standard up, and it just shows that, everyone can do it if I can do it. And I think that's probably helped. And on top of that, we get great support from the men. We often have the white or blue belt guys saying, "Oh, I wish we could be in the girls' team," or every time we turn around, you guys are always smashing each other, training really hard, or swearing at each other and giggling. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much that's what happens. We have a lot of fun, but we train really, really hard as well. And the guys respect that, and they support it, and we all, I don't know, we all have a lot of fun when we train. So I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah. Answered a lot and had more questions pop up after that. But really, your opening story about struggling as basically the only woman in the group, and okay, I need to go change or go to the restroom, and there's a guy in there using it, and then having that difficulty of communicating with them to, hey, actually I need this space, this is mine. And complaining and having some troubles with that, really, I guess I invite the gyms out there that are trying to build women's programs to consider things like that. And really, that's not really a role you want to leave to the new student trying to stand up for themselves just to get in there and use the restroom. That's the coach, ideally would say, hey, guys, stay out of there. If there's a line, there's a line. We're lucky she's here. If we keep using the restroom, there won't be any women here, and you know what? The bathroom will still be empty because you're not going to go in there. And
exactly,
that's just one of.
But it's just amazing, It's a thing that shouldn't be explained, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't come from a bad place from the guys that work at our club. It just comes from not understanding. Why wouldn't you use it if there's no one else in there? But all the studies about women's participation in sport, and I've just spoke at a sports medicine conference about this. It comes from having the facilities and having women in leadership roles, which we've been doing for a long time. Myself and another black belt, Marianne, who's also a world's medalist, we've been teaching mixed classes, for a long time, not just the ladies and the kids, because that's not the only skill we have as women. And it's never been an issue. It's never been questioned that there are women teaching. And I think the kids coming through and everyone else sees that as like, oh yeah, there's just women teaching. Like it's another thing. She's a black belt, just like another black belt at the club. So that's never been an issue at Absolute, you know. In fact, I used to apologize to people, and it was another teammate, a male teammate, that pulled me up. Why would you apologize for coaching? We never question your technique. And I went, oh, yeah, right. I do that to myself. And, you know, other things is like uniforms. Like apparently that's a really big, it's a barrier for women in sports. So things like, you know, for males at our gym, and it doesn't have to be everyone, but we had an incident where a male would wear spats with no underwear and they were see-through. And so we went, all right, if you're wearing spats, you have to wear shorts just for hygiene reasons. And for ladies, you know, we tell them, like, don't wear something that's super short when you're trying to wrestle, you know, like it's just not, it's not nice for anybody, you know, not just the boys, but also us. I don't particularly feel comfortable training like that. So we have specific rules. You know, a lot of clubs have white-only gis for females. You have to think about that as well. If I was a new teenage female trying to start the sport in a white-only kimono, I probably wouldn't come once a month, you know, and that's a really big thing that men might not particularly think about because it's not an issue. But so maybe I would suggest ask the ladies at your club, what do you need? How can we help, you know? And it doesn't necessarily mean have women's only classes and make it into a big, you know, I'm a woman, hear me roar. It just means that you increase the participation and decrease the barriers that prevent women from joining up and staying in the sport.
Yeah, just try to imagine. I guess you don't have to imagine. Ask the women, what can we do differently that would make this a better place for the new people that are coming in? And if you hear something like, you know, it would be nice when I invite a friend of mine to come in and train, I wouldn't have to warn her that there might be a guy in the restroom or any of that stuff. Like these conversations are happening before they get there, so they're already worried about, okay, am I going to have to fight for my use in the restroom or anything that could be another hurdle. You mentioned, you know, they're sitting out in the parking lot like anybody. I'm sure a lot of guys do that too. It's nerve-wracking to go and try this thing for the first time. And
absolutely. It's not just women, it's men as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's an intimidating thing to start. Yeah.
You don't know what it's going to be like, and I think that first day for many people doesn't even happen, even though they plan on it, they get excited about it, they sit in the parking lot, and then they just say, nah, it's not for me. Yeah.
And in the end, you know, when people sign up to a club, they, at that stage when they're a new white belt, they don't know or care if you're a world champion or not. You have to be nice to them because they're just people trying to learn a skill, you know. And if you can't be nice and you can't respect them, then they probably don't care about your achievements because to them it just doesn't mean anything yet. It might later, but not when they're going to sign the membership.
Yeah, 100%. People... from my experience, people aren't signing up to try jiu-jitsu to win a tournament. They just want to see what it's like. They could care less about how what your accomplishments are. They really want to know how you make them feel when you walk in the door.
Absolutely, yeah.
You did very well, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. Now you're at the black belt level. What are the either mental hurdles you have to cover or what's happening different on the mats when you go compete at the black belt level?
Yeah, I think the mental hurdle for me is that I am suddenly fighting my idols, you know, the girls I've been looking up to for the last 6 or 7 years and idolizing them in my head and trying to copy them, are now my rivals. And I got my black belt probably about 2 weeks before Worlds last year. And that was, you know, just even being in that bullpen going, I'm here. Like last year I was just taking photos of the black belt girls all lining up going, they're so amazing. And you can still have that attitude because I look up to a lot of my rivals. But when you step on the mat, that has to disappear and you have to fully believe that you're there to beat them. So that's taken a little bit of adjustment to me. I'm definitely getting better at it every competition and I'm kind of going, right, I belong here. I'm here to win. I'm not here to participate. And I think that actually is, you know, not being content, like losing by 2 points because it's still a loss. So that's been a hard journey, but also obviously the skill level, you know. I think by the time women are black belts, there's not too many really average women competing internationally because it is expensive, it is time consuming, and I guess the newer generation is different. I guess I'm the new generation, but I'm a little bit older than everyone else. A lot of women in their 30s will have children, and families and other commitments. So competing as a black belt at a world stage is not the priority. And so you can be nearly sure that there's less of us than men, but the quality is and the depth is quite high in those, 5 to 10 women you do get. Nearly everyone has a chance of a medal. It's not like there's 1 or 2 really good ones and the rest are just doing it for fun because you simply can't afford to do that. So I think definitely, making a mistake at black belt is a different story. You can't get away with that as much. Losing by an advantage or 2 points is where I get stopped a lot. And because everyone equalizes each other. So definitely it's a lot more technical. There's a lot more strategy involved. And unless you're far above everybody else, which I'm not at this stage, you have to have good strategy. Everything has to go right on the day, having no injuries, sometimes even having a good ref and executing your game and adjusting that plan as you go. Everything has to work out perfectly, otherwise you will lose. And I'm definitely losing a lot more than I was in any other belts, but I guess that's the way it's meant to be at black belt when you're not the absolute best in the world. Yeah, so it's been tough this year, but I'm really enjoying it.
Be able to maintain a smile, I guess, even though it's difficult and frustrating, and you're training very hard, you're traveling, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And know that you're not that far from having it actually work out.
Yeah, you're always just the one comp away, and I think, I've become a much better loser as well. It's not to say I enjoy losing. I hate it just like everybody else, and it frustrates me like no end, and it always feels like it's a lost opportunity. When I don't win, it's a lot of time away from work and from family, and it's a lot of money spent, and it feels like I should be winning to justify that. But I've also learned how to justify my jiu-jitsu not just by gold medals, because that's, I think once I wrote out 2 pages of what jiu-jitsu gives me, and the medals were on the titles were on the bottom of that. So I think if you look at jiu-jitsu, okay, well, I didn't win, but I learned this, and this. I had an amazing time with my friends. I enjoyed competing because I wasn't at work that day, and I got to breathe it in, and I had this adrenaline rush that you don't get to experience as an adult very often. And I was completely in the moment for those 10 minutes of that fight, Then you start maybe appreciating the silver medals just as much, and it just drives you to get better. So, unfortunately, I don't have as much time left in the sport at this elite level as some of the 20-year-old black belts do, but I've got other things that they don't, which is life experience and knowing how to get the best of myself. So I think it's a pretty even playing field in the end.
How long do you plan on being an active competitor?
I don't know. I keep saying 2 years for about the last 8 years. Oh, but I'll just do it for the next 2 years. I love it and I don't want it to end. I just never want it to end. Problem is, if I choose to have a family, it will have to end, and I'm 33. I don't have next 10 years or 15 years like the guys might do. So that's become more and more real. And I'm a little bit sad about it because I do have to make that choice, and I wish I didn't, but I do. Besides that, probably when my body breaks, I'll always train and I'll always love it. I might compete in masters. I could compete in masters now, but, later down the track. But I do want to definitely give this black belt journey a little bit more of a go. I've got some really big goals to accomplish, and, whether I get them or not, hopefully I will. But I don't know. I'll see what happens, in 2 years' time and how I feel about my jiu-jitsu. It will depend on how my body's holding up, I'm getting more tired, and definitely some of the injuries I'm getting, I don't want that to be a permanent damage to my body, and I want to be able to walk when I'm 40 and 50. So I'll never, as much as, gold medals are everything to me, I'll never take that over being healthy as well. But I don't know. For now, I'll just do it for as long as I can. And then if I have to make the choice of either having a family or my health, I'll make that choice. But hopefully at least 2 good years left and see what happens.
You mentioned that you made a list of all the things jiu-jitsu has done for you. So when you're not competing or when you have a rough competition, you're quickly reminded of, you know what, there's a lot more going on here than just choking somebody or getting a medal. Is bringing a lot of benefits to your life.
Oh, for sure. It's just, it's been amazing. Like if you asked me 5 years ago where, I would be a part of a gym and that's expanding internationally. We just bought a gym absolute in Thailand. So I'll be doing a lot of camps there with Lachlan and Craig as well. So many exciting opportunities, teaching seminars all over Australia, in Korea, internationally, going like just we taught jiu-jitsu at the Galapagos Islands and north of Brazil and just crazy places in Mexico. And you never thought it would take you there, even like teaching, presenting at conferences, all that sort of stuff has come from jiu-jitsu, and I never imagined it would, because I just started it to, get some exercise and like roll on the mats and wrestle some guys. Like that was fun for me. So it's really nice to be able to make a life and a living out of it. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. You did have a lot of success early on, and I just kind of want to get some of your thoughts towards like the blue belt division. If you were to make a cheat sheet, as in do these things on these 3 or 4 things, and you'll be far better off for a blue belt competitor, what would be on that cheat sheet?
I think getting good at one thing, rather than trying to master everything at once. But that still holds true now, when I won Blue Belt Worlds, so I went to Blue Belt Worlds at first year at Blue, and I lost, I think, second round, but I swept the girl who ended up winning the division. And I was completely deluded and came off the mat and said to Lockie, I'm going to win this next year. And he didn't laugh at me, but he was like, yeah, you might need to learn just like one guard. I only had top game. And he's like, you might need to learn a bit of jiu-jitsu if you want to win, just a small observation. And I was like, okay, I will. And we literally came home and made a plan. And the plan was, I chose a guard that was going to be my A game. And I drilled and specific trained for 2 hours, 3 days a week before a class. I bribed people to come and train with me. I put a timer on for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is my turn. In your 5 minutes, you can talk, do your hair, go to the toilet, do whatever you want. But in my 5 minutes, I'm training, So I used to bring them coffees or breakfast or whatever. And I used to record my sessions, and once a week I would go back to Lockie and go, right, these are the mistakes that came up. How can I fix them? And then I would do another week of that, top, bottom, left, right. And so, I learned how to get to that one position from every other position. And that was a plan over a year. And, whether by work or a bit of luck on the day as well, I had 6 rounds and I actually won Worlds next year. But it doesn't say that will always happen, because there's so many factors to win a world title, and the best person doesn't always win. But it happened for me and just showed me that, okay, we had a plan. It was smart, it was scientific, and I did it. I executed everything, and I put myself in the best position to get there. So I think having like an A game, and learning how to get there from everywhere was really important for me. From top or bottom, wherever it might be for you. And then I spent purple belt kind of going, oh my God, there's all these holes in my game that I haven't addressed. And it became really apparent. And then I just started building my game from that. So probably my A game is still very similar, but I am like now as a black belt, my aim is to be very, very well rounded. And whether I'm top, bottom, underneath, on top, stand up, wrestling, I'm good at everything. That's where I want to be. So that's changed. My focus has changed a little bit, but I still pick a month and go, right, this month is De La Riva month, and I'm getting good at that. Perhaps not every single role, or, depending what my intensity that day is, but I think having a very clear focus and direction helps you to improve, no matter what belt you are. So that's my observation. And again, it doesn't mean that works for everybody. Some people go a little bit mental with too much focus and they need something different, but it's really worked for me.
Yeah. Livia, when you pick, like, I'm doing this theme for this month, how do you do that? Is there a procedure, or is it just kind of what you're thinking about working on next?
It might be just, inspired by someone I watch. I don't know, I might watch Leandro Lowe a lot and go, I'm going to do, modified spider single legs guards because I just want to execute it. It might be something Lockie's working on and he's teaching that a lot in class and I want to get better at it. But probably more often than not, it's when I see a big gap in my game. Last year I competed a lot. I think I was overseas about 8 times in a year, and sometimes that doesn't give you enough time to work on the holes and the other stuff. So this year I think I just can't afford time-wise and money-wise to travel so much. So I'm actually enjoying being home and working on the holes, and they become really obvious. I always keep getting stuck here. People are always passing me the same way, so I need to work on my late stage half guard recovery to an offensive position. So I've got plenty of things to work on. I write them down. I've got plenty of holes. They become more and more apparent every day. So I never have a shortage of knowing what to work on, really. And sometimes it's just I do work on my A game as well. That's important too. But yeah, I don't know if I have a system of what to work. It's either by feel or necessity. So after competitions, it becomes apparent too.
Yeah. You mentioned that when you build that A game, you want to have many avenues to get there. Basically, from any position, you have a few things you're going to do, and you're going to be back to where you wanted to be. And I think that having that is a tremendous confidence boost because when you're in a tournament and you're having several matches, you're going to be put in some spots you'd rather not be in. But just the fact that you have a path to get where you want to be is...
Yeah.
It makes you feel confident.
Yeah, having a path, and also, when you're in training, we've got 3 times a week, we do an ADCC specific no-gi session with the boys. A lot of the girls are at work, so I'm often the only female there. And, trust me, nothing feels as bad as like having whatever, Lockie or Craig or Kit on top of you trying to squash you. I mean, they never go full force at me, but whenever I get to in a competition, I have to remember, I'm fighting a 115-pound girl. Like, I can actually hip escape, So nothing ever feels as bad for me as it does in training because it's hell sometimes. Not every day, but, I get squashed and sat on a lot as well. So just knowing, like, I've been here before, it's okay. I'm not going to die. It's really comforting.
I think that's a big point as far as it doesn't need to be a world-class person that you're training with, like those guys. If you're a blue belt and you're getting ready to step out and compete against another blue belt, hey, occasionally when you train with brown belts or a black belt, and just know that likely they're not going to do anything that you haven't seen before, or it's not a whole other league of person you're rolling with. And
you definitely don't need like world-class, world champion black belts to improve. Craig is a great example of that. He had white belts till his first ADCC championship, and then he moved to Melbourne, but he just had white belts to practice transitions on, and he got really good. Kit's the same, like the guys now have the luxury of having each other to train with, and it makes them a lot better because they've got the intensity and the technique and the innovation, the making up new stuff every single day, and we get to see that as well, but I guess it's a curse and a blessing being a small female because training partners are harder to come by, so technical light people. But at the same time, if there's no one better than me, there's someone heavier than me. So I'm never the best person at the gym, and I think that really helps. I've always got someone to chase, whether it's strength or weight or technique. If you're always the first person in the gym, I think your job is actually a lot harder because you have to put yourself in. You have to seek out certain games of certain training partners and put yourself in those positions where they might be better than you. But yeah, it is a lot more difficult as well.
Livia, I've had a blast talking jiu-jitsu with you. Do you want to try playing our little Family Feud game here?
Let's do it.
All right. Name something you hope is clean when company shows up unexpectedly.
Kitchen.
Name something you know about the earth.
It's round.
Name something you might catch up on.
Work.
Name something you might do on a sunny day that you would never do on a rainy day.
Go to the beach.
Name something you might find on the bottom of a shoe.
Dirt.
All right, good answers. They're all on the board.
Are they?
Yeah, your best answer was the round earth, 40 points.
I was going to say flat just to switch up a bit, but people might take that seriously. So.
Yeah, that wouldn't have got you any points at all. Something that you hope is clean. Kitchen was worth 6 points. And number one was the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Something that you catch up on. People are trying to catch up on sleep. That's 46 points. Work got you 2 points. Going to the beach on a sunny day is worth 14. Sunbathing is worth 34, which I guess to me they're kind of the same thing.
Makes sense, though. Yeah.
Name something on the bottom of a shoe. Gum was the number one answer.
Oh, yeah.
Livia, you got 69 points on the Family Feud here. You did well. I think I like your answer of catching up on work. It shows how dedicated you are towards making progress when most people answer they catch up on sleep. So I can tell you're a busy person by that answer right there.
Great.
No time for sleep. You have work to catch up on.
Sleep. It's the best thing.
Before I let you go, tell me about your sponsors.
So I'd like to say thanks probably to my biggest sponsors. So that's MA1 Apparel. They make really great kimonos and fitness gear. I've got Musashi Nutrition, who sponsor me with the supplements, who, they're always delicious, but also of the highest quality. And then that cold stuff. So it's cold brew coffee. And it just helps me get through my day. Comes in an amazing pouch, and you can just pour it straight from the fridge, and it saves my life.
It's called brewed coffee. It's called That Cold Stuff?
That Cold Stuff.
Okay, and that's the name of it?
Yeah, it's an Australian brand.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they ship internationally, but they definitely send from all over Australia.
Okay. I'll put links to those in the show notes, as well as links to your gym. Where can somebody find you training or get a hold of you on social media?
So my Instagram handle is Liv Jiu-Jitsu, and my blog is livjiujitsu.com, and you can find me on Facebook, so Livia Gluchowska.
All right. Thank you so much. Livia, any final thoughts or ideas you want to share with the audience before I let you go?
Just thanks for having me on the show, and it's a real honor. I've been listening to it for a long time, so it's really nice to, for you to find us in Australia and get us on.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words. It's an honor to have you on here, and it's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Livia for the interview. It was great to get to know her, and I hope you guys did too as well. Find her on social media and follow her. A lot going on, and great to have her on the show. Really appreciated it. Hey, real quick, I want to mention we have our first ever BJJ Brick event coming up. I guess every podcast is an event in itself, but this is an actual event where we're going to be there in person. It's starting June 22nd, open mat. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to that, but I definitely will be there on June 23rd and June 24th. June 23rd is Tim Sled and Rolly Delgado, two past guests, two of our favorite people we've had on the show, are going to be teaching some world-class jiu-jitsu. June 24th, the BJJ Brick team will be teaching some not quite as world-class. We'll be teaching some jiu-jitsu. There we go. We'll be having a lot of fun both days. We'll be trying to organize some things off the mat as well, so we're all just having a good time and hanging out. And I don't know. I'm entertaining basically a whole bunch of different ideas about what we could be doing. We might try to record a live podcast it wouldn't air live, but it would have some of the people that would be able to attend and watch us record it. We'd all get together. It'd be kind of an interesting thing. Go out to dinner. There's a handful of things we might do. So definitely, if you're able to get to Wichita, Kansas on those dates, it'd be great to have you. Send me an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com. I'll put you on the little list that we have going on so we could kind of keep in contact and let you know what's up. And also, I'll be giving away some DVDs for the people that travel to Wichita. And just a little bit of a thank you for making the trip.
Yeah, I feel like we should do a little public service announcement here for anybody that hasn't been listening long or might not be familiar with the two guests that will be doing the seminar. Tim's kind of a leg drag guy, which I understand could lead to footlocks, and Rolly's a footlock guy, and coincidentally, so is Gary. So if you attend this event, make sure to bring your crutches and your ice packs and all that stuff you're going to need.
You know, I have been to 2 of Rolly Delgado's seminars so far in my, long lifetime, I guess I would say. But
very long.
Yeah, I have learned so much from him, and just the 2 seminars I've been to, and I also have his Legal Leg Locks app, which started my journey into leg locks. And I am not anything special at leg locks, like Joe said. I do like leg locks. I don't say I'm very good at them, but I try, and I have learned a lot from Rolly, and those 2 seminars were just incredible. But I can't wait for Tim Sled's seminar also. Byron never leg dragged before. He started watching Tim Sled and became a leg drag person, and I am on the receiving end of the leg drag constantly. So I am excited to learn from Tim Sled there also.
When you talk about people doing seminars or putting out DVDs and it sort of transforms somebody's game, that's a pretty high compliment. So you're saying a lot about these 2 guys, Gary. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's like people, like Rolly, before I'd ever met him, I had learned so much from his legal leg lock DVD, or that it was just unbelievable. And then the first time we interviewed him, I almost didn't even, Byron was interviewing and I was in on that too, but I almost just wanted to talk to him all day long about picking his mind on the legal leg lock video. I just learned so much from it, and I just had some questions that he answered for me. And then the greatest thing was Jake Fox from Fox Fitness brought him in for a seminar, and I was like, unbelievable. This is incredible. But I do have a quick little story about that. The first time Rolly came to Wichita, or maybe it was the second time, I can't remember which one it was, but I have a buddy of mine that I work with that was just started training. He had been training probably 3 months, never seen a leg lock in his life, never put a gi on in his life, didn't even own one, didn't know what was. And this one was a gi leg lock video, or gi leg lock seminar. And I was like, hey, you ought to come to this. I got an extra gi you can borrow. And he came to it, and we were partners for the seminar, and Rolly will teach you something and gives you a ton of time to drill it and come by and make sure everything's going perfect, and helping you out, troubleshooting you. And the coolest thing ever was Blake, this training partner of mine, never done a leg lock before, spent the 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever it was, through the interview. Basically next week, he was tapping people out much higher level than him with a straight ankle lock. And that was so cool to see that. And out of all the people I was trying to get to go, hey, you ought to go, this is going to do great, he was the only one who took me up on the offer. And a lot of the people who, didn't go, Blake was tapping them out. So I thought that was cool. And, he's an incredible teacher.
So they just wanted to take a day off and have a barbecue or something on a weekend. They paid the price for that.
They paid the price, and they still do to this day.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, both these guys have been game-changing. As far as leg locks go, has been Rolly, and guard passing for me, Tim Sled has really opened a lot of doors and made things a lot easier for me. I don't know what Tim will be teaching, and I'm sure he'll be happy to show leg drag stuff, but both those guys have deep jiu-jitsu knowledge and really could spend weeks teaching, 3-hour seminars and not have to show. Like, he's got a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was in Arkansas a little bit ago, and swung by there and rolled with him, and it's just so much fun training with him. Yeah. Oh man, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. To that weekend, not this weekend.
Yeah.
This weekend is garbage compared to that weekend.
I actually took a private with Rolly too. We're talking about leg drags and leg locks, but like Byron said, these guys, that's only part of the game. You can learn anything from them. And I took a leg lock or a private with Rolly, and it was just focusing on Kimuras, and definitely I learned a ton there. Changed my game too. So these guys, whatever they teach you, it's going to be well worth it. You will find stuff to bring into your game overnight. It's really going to be beneficial.
Yep, so check it out. And we're getting close to getting some stuff up online. So basically, this is podcast-only information coming at you. We'll get some stuff online and like a sign-up sheet and that sort of thing. And looking forward to bringing that to you. I want to quickly mention our audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. It is a book produced, written, and directed by me, Byron Jabara, and it's basically like a 2.5-hour podcast episode where I walk you through what to expect your first year, help you get past some of those challenges you might meet. You might have to fight some battles more than once, and what to expect in those battles. I help you focus on the right techniques because, of course, there'll be stuff that is going over your head, and I help you deal with those frustrations. And really get your head in the game as far as what you need to be doing and kind of avoid some of the common pitfalls that people get into early on in jiu-jitsu. And it's been very helpful to a lot of people, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback about the audiobook. But it's $11.99, and there'll be a link for it in the show notes. Check it out. If you're in your first year, definitely I think it would be a good investment and to help you stay on the right track, my friends.
Hey, Byron, usually at some point during the show, Gary reads a phony review, something about your mom saying how awesome this show is.
Yes.
But we actually did get some new reviews this week, and we appreciate everybody that leaves us a review. And I just want to read one now. Guy writes in, says, bought both audiobooks. Great stuff for anyone starting out. Seriously. I let my buddy listen, and he later messaged me and wanted to thank the BJJ Brick as well because he joined the podcast. Really helpful to both of us. Thanks. So they're changing lives.
There we go. Yeah, and share it with. I mean, don't. It really wouldn't help us out if you posted it like online for all to download. But if you've got some friends that could listen to it, and that's awesome. I mean, it's like sharing a book versus uploading the entire book to the internet and letting everybody have it there. But yeah, if you've got somebody you could, hey, I'll send you the file or whatever. I don't know how you would do it. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And the more people it helps, the better. And I'm just happy that I was able to help 2 people with that one. That's cool. Got another review here. If you want to write a review, we are really thrilled and honored that you take the time out, and most of them are done on iTunes. It helps promote the show. The review that Joe read was real, and it was a 5-star review. Here's our 4-star review. We don't have very many of these. This will be interesting. It's titled, I Like the Dynamic. This was written by Duck11. Okay.
Duck11.
Yeah, he gets a bit quacky in here. We'll get to that. It's a good podcast. It's a bit corny at times, but they are good people, and they try to make it family-friendly. A lot of times, when Byron tries to reword the answer given by the person he interviews, he makes it more confusing. Overall, though, it's a fun show. I do like that. I'm really happy that it's overall a fun show, and yeah, we do try to keep it, family-friendly. Occasionally during the interviews, somebody will say something that I don't really feel like cutting out, whatever. But between the 3 of us, we try to keep the humor. If it is getting a little more adult, to go over the heads of smaller ones is kind of our goal. But I'll try not to make the interviews more confusing than they need to be. I don't know what I could do there, guys, but learning how to interview is a bit of an ongoing process, and I will take that and I will think about how I can make it less confusing instead of more confusing when I ask questions or try to reword something.
Byron, I'm confused. What were you saying?
I was just trying to reword his...
Yeah, I think when you reworded it, yeah, you really messed it up.
But yeah, thanks for the review.
No, but yeah, Duck11, thank you. We appreciate, all your everybody who sends in a review. It just helps us make the show better. We know what we're doing right. We know what we're doing wrong, what we can do better on, and we're here to try to make a better show. Just like jiu-jitsu, we're going to keep our ears open and listen to people critique our jiu-jitsu. We're going to listen to people critique our podcast and try to get better.
Yep. The other one was by Crybo. Thanks, guys, for the reviews. We'll have a couple more to read to you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, I watch Mike. It used to be Mike and Mike, and now it's Mike and Wingo or something. Morning sports show on ESPN, and they had did a little piece with Ronda Rousey, and Mike Golick asked her if you could go back in time, not like go back in time, but if you could go back, given enough time in the cage, would you fight again? But that's a very poorly constructed sentence, and he didn't deliver it very well. And it really came off as, if you could go back in time, would you get in the cage and fight again? And Rhonda's like, if I could go back in time? And Mike's like, yeah, and fight again. And she's like, I don't have the ability to go back in time. and you could see Rhonda thought, what are these guys clowning me? What kind of question is this? And Mike Golick was like, well, it's a simple question. What's her problem? Oh, man.
That's funny.
Golick and Wingo are probably like, oh, man, I hope she doesn't get really mad.
All right, let's talk about our article of the week. This is by one of our, I think this is probably one of our more popular places to get an article from. Anytime I'm looking for an article and I kind of need something, I just go to John Will's blog, BJJ. You know what? I'll put a link to it, but bjj-australia.blogspot.com, and there'll be a link directly to this particular thing he titled Safety Net. And he talks a little bit about trapeze artists and how important it is to have that. And there's business safety nets, with wealth and that sort of thing, and it's something kind of help you out, get you out of trouble if you get into that. And there's social things as well as far as safety nets. But in BJJ, he talks about it as the culture on the mat, as being part of this safety net. I thought that was a pretty interesting idea.
One thing that reminded me of, Byron, he's talking about the safety net allows you to push the envelope and try new tricks. It kind of reminded me of when you were talking with Lachlan Giles, and you were talking about takedowns, and where he was saying a lot of times people try takedowns, and the very first time they shoot a takedown, they get choked. And the very second time they try a takedown, they get choked again. So they never try them again, and they never get good at it. And I just remember him saying, hey, the way we do takedown class in my class is we do takedowns without submissions. And it allows you to perfect your takedown, to get good at takedowns. You're not fearing, I guess your safety net would be, you're not fearing the guy choking you. So you get good at takedowns, and then you slowly start easing in, once you figured it out, slowly start easing in the chokes and how not to get caught in the chokes, how to evade them as you're going to the ground. And that's the first thing that came to my mind. And then the second thing is I was like, John Will, Australian, and Absolute MMA there in Australia. So I guess some great advice from the Australian continent.
Yep, that's really good, Gary. So they've created a culture where you can work on your takedowns without worrying about the choke all the time. I like that. More schools should do that. Something I was thinking about, the safety net, because it talks about personal safety in here a little bit too. And Byron was talking about culture. Generally, when I tap like to a Kimura, it's because I have no more defense left. If I could get out of it, if I could keep my arm from getting broken, I wouldn't tap. So think about the tremendous amount of trust that you put into your teammates every time you roll, and how important culture is.
Yeah, that is huge. It's less the individual and more the group, because in the right culture, people who are a bit more aggressive and really, wouldn't mind injuring somebody, a lot of times they could be changed and they become a training partner with a more safe mindset and actions. But in the wrong culture, it's just going to breed like a bad environment, injury prone, and it's going to be a very tricky place to train at without getting injured. And you might be kind of somewhere that most places are kind of in the middle, not perfect, but not super dangerous either. but you're part of that culture. So, that's up to you to affect the way people are training with you and each other, and just the way you treat each other and the way you're respectful. I'm more, I feel good about not injuring people. And also I feel good about not getting injured, but I don't want to hurt anybody that I'm training with. I remember I was armbarring somebody several months ago, and I'm like, he should be tapping. And a little bit more, I'm like, he's not tapping. And then I just stopped it. And I go, man, you're stubborn on arm bars. And he goes, yeah, I got flexible elbows. But it was scaring me because I was thinking, man, I'm really close to getting hurt to hurt this guy's arm. I don't know why he's not tapping to this. And I moved on, and now I prefer chokes on that guy. But that's the thing that is okay to do. Did he get out of my arm bar? I guess. he didn't tap to it. But I was concerned about his own safety, and it's nice about the armbar is it could be done fairly slowly, and I was doing it slowly, but I just was expecting him to tap, and he was just not doing it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to let him hurt himself, or let me hurt him, I guess. I don't know how you would even phrase that, because he should be tapping at that point, was what I thought, but he was fine. I just didn't understand that, and I still don't like to armbar the guy because it's still kind of scary. But
that's why you're such a good training partner, and people like to train with you, Byron. You believe in that culture. You strive for that culture, and you're just a good person. And wherever you train, that culture follows you. So I'm proud to train with you, and I think all the times I've trained with you, I don't think you've ever hurt me. I mean, besides my feelings, you hurt my feelings a lot.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
That's off the mat, Gary. That's more on the podcast.
Yeah. But the one thing I really like about this article is the very last sentence. Safety nets allow us the luxury of taking risks, which we talked about earlier. And the risk-taking leads to new discovery and learning. To learn, we got to go down paths we haven't been, new discoveries, and we're going to learn from that. So safety nets, risk-taking, all equals learning.
I think that's the crux of it, Gary. And just to back up a little bit, he talked about having an answer for bad positions as being part of that safety net. And that's what that ties into what you're saying, Gary, that I can try a guard pass that's new or that I'm not very good at and not worry about getting swept if I am not getting crushed every time I'm on the bottom. If I have a way to get back to guard and then execute a sweep of my own, that allows me the luxury of taking more risk and trying new things.
Yep, that's awesome.
And it's also nice if your training partners don't crush you every time they get the chance, to where you're playing a little bit more open game. Some days it's good to have somebody come at you and really push you. But other days it's kind of nice to know, yeah, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to pay for it for the rest of this round. I think that's another thing that's important as far as the culture goes. Think about the sport of, I don't know if it's a sport, trapeze. Probably just made our one trapeze person pretty upset with me. Probably a sport. I mean, it's very athletic. It's crazy. But if they didn't have safety nets, what would the trapeze art look like? There it is. It's an art. It wouldn't look like anything like it does because they can't train. They would be a few feet off the ground and really focused on how to fall correctly. But with the safety net, they're up there super high. They're doing flips and catching each other and throwing each other and all this crazy stuff because of a safety net allows them to take those risks. And that. Any time that you're able to make something that could be dangerous more safe, you're really letting people explore the benefits of it. You could practice trapeze and mess up one time, and you're dead. Or you could mess up 1,000 times, and you land in the safety net, and you get up and you do it again, and you're not scared, and you're focused on what you want to do. Man, huge differences with safety nets. So, your safety net in jiu-jitsu, there's several of them, and they're mentioned in the article. Put a link, but we covered quite a few of them, and the idea of getting out of a bad spot is a big safety net. That confidence in your ability to escape is big. And I always like John Will's stuff.
Yeah, he's good, man.
He's always putting out stuff like good articles. He's consistent, and they're fairly short, and they're just like out of the box. Like, who thinks about safety nets in jiu-jitsu? Well, John Will does.
Yeah. But
cool.
If you look at his little underneath little writing, underneath where it says John Will's blog, 5th degree black belt, I love his little thing there. But he says, I have no inclination toward either political correctness or correct spelling. This blog, such as it is, remains fundamentally an unfiltered gush of thought, both raw and unpolished. And it's crazy because that's what we like about it. That's, just the thoughts that come into his head. He puts it down, relates it to jiu-jitsu in ways that I wouldn't have ever thought. But, that's his mind. That's why he's a 5th degree black belt. He's, got an incredible mind and not just for the sport, everything he does. And he's a very intelligent person.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of other intelligent people, and they are on our Patreon support team. Man, this is a good group. I'll highlight a couple members. I want to say thank you to Ramus, Keith, Tim, Nathan, and Greg. And we'll throw in Mindy. So I think it was at 5 or so. Thanks, guys, so much for the support on Patreon. I think that's kind of a good idea to just name a few of them and give them a little recognition as time goes on. But they've been our loyal Patreon supporters, helping the show grow and get better. That's really the goal of what we're doing now. If you want more BJJ Brick, you want higher quality and us to do more things that we couldn't do before, funds always helped with that. And these people have signed up on Patreon. And every time an episode comes out, the most common thing is people pay $1 per episode. If you're willing to say, yeah, this is worth $1, go there and pledge $1 per episode. And you could put a limit, because this month, I think there's like 6 episodes in April. It's kind of crazy because there's 5 Mondays in our bonus episode. You can say, hey, I want to limit my contributions to 4 episodes per month, or 3, or no limit, or, in case we're producing like an episode a day. I don't see that happening. But, you could put a limit on there to where you're not getting surprised. And that's kind of a nice feature that Patreon has. But if you're wanting to help the show, this is a great way to do it. It will get you a 5-inch BJJ Brick gi patch. You can put anywhere on your gi, as long as it's IBJJF legal, and even if it's not, it probably still will stay attached to your gi. And a sticker in the mail. So both these will get mailed out to you. If you put your address on there, I'll be happy to send them anywhere in the world. And the sticker can go anywhere you want, as long as it's not Gary's property. Because Gary gets annoyed by those stickers getting all over his vehicle when you didn't notice it. I should do that, Gary.
Oh, that'd be great. And I wouldn't notice it either. But hey, another thing I want to say, we just talked about our Patreon supporters. If you happen to come through Wichita, Kansas, or Houston or New Orleans area for Joe, message us, bjjbrick@gmail.com. We just had a guest. She's been here a couple times to see us from Germany. Denise just is leaving tomorrow. She came to visit us and got to train with her a little bit. And, she gave us some German chocolate, which we loved.
Oh, man.
Speaking of German chocolate, you eat some of that great stuff right before you roll. And as Byron says, you may want to check your gi pants. Byron, let's get on with a Mat Tale.
This is Mat Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Mat Tales.
This Mat Tales takes place on the day of my second tournament. I had just started jiu-jitsu 3 months earlier and already competed once when I was 2 months in. I was embarrassed about my first tournament. I lost all of my matches. I even lost to one of my teammates, who I tap regularly. It just wasn't my day. In the first tournament, I think it hurt a little bit more. But this tournament, my second tournament, was going to be different. I was going to get a good result. Also, this tournament was submission only, no points. I felt that this would naturally play to my advantage. I was excited, and I trained as hard as I could for this tournament. I have a busy schedule. I was able to train 2 times a week leading up to it. My first match was in the gi. I looked at my opponent across from me. He looked pretty big and pretty tough, but I was still confident. The match started. I got my grips. I snapped him down. He dropped and tried to pull guard, but I was already passing. Now he had a grip up on my collar. I ignored this grip because I was almost already passed. He didn't try to break it. No trouble. I was confident that once I passed his legs, any sort of a grip he had, I would be able to handle once I reached sight control. The room grew loud. I was surrounded by chaos. I was confused. Why are there so many people in my bedroom? Where am I? As I opened my eyes, I saw the tournament director looking at me, asking if I was okay. Still confused, but not feeling hurt, I started to respond. Before I could say I was okay, I released the loudest fart I've ever heard. As I began to realize I wasn't in my bedroom, and that, yes, I think I had been choked unconscious by his crafty grip as I passed his guard. I had never seen anything like that before. I was still confused. I know I was on top side control, and evidently I had been out for a little while because quite the crowd had gathered around me. As I piece all this together, in my seconds that I came back to reality, I realized that I had just tooted my own horn in front of a massive captive audience. With all this confusion, this choke I'd never seen before, the big crowd, the dizziness, the tournament director told me to go collect my medal. What is going on here? I have just been choked unconscious in a bracket with 4 people. How did I place? I guess they gave me a first-round bye. Or they felt bad for me or something. But I got a medal. And the only thing award-worthy or record-breaking that I did was the volume of my gas that left my body. Now I had some time to shake this off and laugh a little bit before no-gi started. And I was somehow convinced that I would do better in no-gi. Looking back, I'm surprised how deep my well of confidence truly goes. But really, it can't get any worse than what I'd already just done. I ended up performing very well in no-gi and placed as well. But in no-gi, I didn't go to sleep or have the panic of having to check my pants before I left the mat.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
All right. Well, thanks again for the Matt Tales. It's been a while, with this 6 episodes in 1 month. I don't know if we'll be able to do another Matt Tales this month, but maybe. Basically, it's significantly more time to edit one of those as I like per minute wise. It takes longer to edit an episode, but we'll see how things play out. But we need them. So if you want to send us your own Matt Tale, your own crazy story, jiu-jitsu related somehow, we'd love to hear it and share it with the audience and do something like we just did with that one. And glad it worked out okay on the mats that time. Close call. I've been caught in a very similar choke. I think they call it the suicide choke, where you kind of just give up your guard and you get your hands just right, and it's very tight. And I think the problem with me is it is hard to tap to a choke when you're in a dominant position. And so I was put in one of those, and I got woke up.
Did you toot your own horn, though, Byron?
Oh, that was awesome.
That's just kind of a constant thing. No, I did not. And I think that, I've been choked out more last year than all of my jiu-jitsu combined. I got choked unconscious more times in 2017. And so far, I'm at 0 times this year, and that's the way I want it to be. I'm tapping earlier to choke. That's my goal, is to not get put to sleep on accident. It's always been an accident, but I think the part of my brain that says, "Hey, you're gonna go to sleep," isn't quite calibrated right, and so I'm taking that into effect of how quickly I tap on chokes.
Yeah.
We mentioned Gary and I are in Wichita, Kansas. Joe will be here for the BJJ Brick event in late June. But if you want to train with us, we'd be happy to get on the mat with you. We had Denise. Thanks so much for the chocolates and the good rolls. Very impressive
She brought
electric
rolls?
chair. You got me, Gary. Like, what did I say? She brought the rolls.
You said rolls, but you just didn't mean rolls.
Oh, okay. I thought she brought like dinner rolls.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You were gone that day. It was delicious.
You stole them all.
Yeah. It was great to roll again with our friend from Germany, and she talked about trying to make it up here for the event, and just seeing if her schedule will fit with that. So that'd be amazing. Wherever you're at, if you're closer than Germany, you should at least be considering it.
Yeah, if you're Germany, it's probably not close enough to drive to.
That's
or
true.
Walk to.
Man, that's a long walk.
Yep. Well, walk plus swim.
Joe, if they want to find you, where could they track you down, my friend?
Well, they can find me south of Houston. And Gary, where's that other city I'm by?
New Orleans.
Oh, you said it right that time. Okay.
What did I say?
You sounded like a Yankee the first time you said it. So.
Well, I am from upstate New York.
Yeah, I'm oftentimes near New Orleans. So if you're there, hit me up. And my hometown's just south of Houston. So be glad to train with anybody that's in the area.
Yep. Check us out on Facebook. We're always, Joe is always posting interesting thoughts, and the episodes get posted there as well. YouTube has been a lot of fun. Kind of storing our episodes there and putting up some BJJ Brick Q&A where I'll answer questions that I get, and it's kind of sporadic because I don't get a constant flow of questions, one per week. So when I get a question, a lot of times I'll just type up an answer and send it to somebody. But a lot of times I'll make a little video and send that to everybody that's on YouTube, which, it's not everybody, but send it to anybody who wants to find it. So that's a good kind of fun doing that. And there's lots of reviews of different products on there as well. Joe's got in a little action on that as well. Check out our app, BJJ Brick app. Find it in your app store. Man, pretty good stuff going on here, my friends. Next week, we have Roy Harris. And he's been on the show before. He's somebody who, you can tell when I'm interviewing, I'm learning a lot, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. And he's written so many articles, and he's been a black belt for so long and helped so many different grapplers. His thoughts and his ideas are like well constructed. I ask him a question, and it's like he's reading a response. It's so well organized, but he's not. I don't give him my questions in advance, and he just comes up with these great answers and really surprises me with sometimes where the conversation goes. And he has a book, the Jiu-Jitsu Answer Man. I read that. I was like, I gotta get back on the show. We got more to talk about. We'll put a link to the book. I know it'll be in next week's episode. Hopefully I'll remember to put it in this week's episode. But yeah, it's a really fun book to read. He talks about a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff and answers a lot of questions. And I actually did a review on the book on our YouTube channel. Man, everything's wrapping up nicely, my friends.
Yeah, for sure. Check it out next week. Oftentimes the depths of a person's knowledge can be measured by the people that they studied with. And this guy studied with the who's who. He started out with Dan Inosanto, Bruce Lee's coach, and then moved to jiu-jitsu and trained with most of the notable Gracies of the day, some notable Sambo guys, or Sambo guys. So this guy's got some knowledge to pass on.
That'll be next week. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats.
And let us know if you have a personalized jiu-jitsu license plate. We'd like to see. Send a picture of that on our Facebook page. Love to see it.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Check us out next week. And don't forget to check out the archives at bjbrick.com or on this YouTube channel.